Good evening, and thank you for coming. I'd like to start by thanking the Anxiety Relief Project for hosting this Facebook Live talk. And what we'll do with questions is, if you have questions, feel free to write them in the chat box. And at the end, we'll get into them. Thank you. We're living in a time of great uncertainty. Of course, the environment is front and center. The economy seems timeless, that it's uncertain, not knowing if we can pay our bills, not knowing if we're going to have enough, make ends meet. Politically, things are pretty uncertain. So, great uncertainty. At the same time, we have something called mindfulness. The idea is that not that it's going to solve every problem, but mindfulness is about cultivating present moment awareness. And it shows us that we can relate to whatever comes up, including the greatest challenges, in a particular way. I thought we'd start off with a mindfulness exercise, which is a grounding exercise. And so if, however you're situated, we'd like to have your feet on the floor. So in other words, not dangling in space, but actually touching the ground. So if you can get set up that way. And what we're going to do is we're going to have our attention on our feet on the floor. So where the feet touch the floor and the contact there, we're directing our attention. And we're not doing it in order to be able to describe things, coming up with words or analyze or anything fancy. We're just going to have our attention there and have an open mind, and whatever we see, we see. What tends to happen with us humans is that we can do that for a bit, and then our mind goes off somewhere. We might suddenly remember an email that we forgot to send today, for example. Could be anything, but just like that, we're somewhere else. And there's no problem with that. That is what we do. It's what our mind does. But as soon as we notice that we have wandered, we bring our attention back to our feet on the floor. So there's no analysis. We're not categorizing what we were thinking about. None of that. We're not going into the story. As soon as we notice, okay, somewhere else, we just bring our attention back to our feet on the floor. So let's just do that for a short moment. Thank you very much for playing along. We might be remembering a conversation that we had earlier today and going back and forth. He said this, I said this. And in the process, realizing that we said some pretty lame things. And so now we're feeling embarrassed, maybe even ashamed. Okay, so all of this, we've cooked all of this up, started with thoughts, brought in feelings and emotions. It becomes a drama. And we get trapped in such a drama. It's actually like fake news, the way someone, Facebook, they've got an article and you read and you think, wow, yeah, this is really great. I didn't know any of this. So we share it. So we want our friends to read it. And then after a little while, we get a comment telling us that it's fake news with the Snopes link. So again, we feel like an idiot for having passed that on. But the point is that we, right up until that moment about where we were told it was fake, we believed it. We believed it 100%, didn't question it. That's really similar to what we're doing all the time with our own thoughts, is we're automatically believing them as if they were real. And mindfulness practice can be really helpful with helping us develop some perspective so we can actually see our thoughts, observe them, witness them, instead of automatically getting involved with them. Now we get thrown off a lot by this kind of thing. And it's as if we're on a bucking bronco. We could be thrown to the ground at any moment. Let's say, anticipating a presentation like this one, I would be thinking, okay, all the things that could go wrong, just like I just saw, as I said that, I saw the sign that says low battery. So excuse me just for a moment. I'm gonna plug this in. Sorry. Perfect example. I'm sorry about that interruption. Getting thrown off the horse. So mindfulness tells us about being present. You know, when we're getting lost somewhere else, coming back to the present moment. But it actually shows us how. The exercise that we did, it gives the idea that we're reorienting, which is like riding a ship. Ship goes over and comes back up straight. We're imposing a discipline on our mind through this practice. And we're engaging in a process which is a particular way of relating to our own thoughts, feelings, emotions, and sensations without prejudice or expectation or goal orientation. Keeping an open mind and simplicity is key in this process. The mind wanders and we come back to the present moment. There's only one option. and we keep coming back in the same way. So there's simplicity there. And simplicity is actually very powerful because it helps us cut through the confusion, the chaos, the busyness. And when we do that, it puts us in contact with something else, something that we don't normally get in touch with. So it's a big space. And actually have a chance to start to get to know ourselves more, who we actually are, beyond the superficial ways that we normally might identify ourselves. Us humans, we have a strong tendency for self-absorption, which is hanging out in the me world, where everything that's going on is about me in one way or another. We're self-centered. And that actually produces a fragmentation because we're cutting ourselves off from others. We're so wrapped up in me. And the lack of connection with others becomes our Achilles heel. John Donne wrote No Man is an Island. And the idea is that we're individual human beings. We're actually much more than that. We're part of something much bigger. But if we don't see that, we feel like we're a speck in the universe. On our own, we have to fend for ourselves. And we feel threatened a lot. No connections. We have to watch our back. So in this scenario, there's a constant role for anxiety, you can imagine. So how do we navigate from the disconnected to the connected? Say I'm in a grocery store lineup and I see the Men's Health magazine cover, and there's a hunk there on the cover, and he's got abs, right? Really pronounced abs. And I've never had an ab, so I don't know what that's like. It's almost like looking at the ridges on the moon. But we get a lot of messages of how we're supposed to be. Some of them are subtle, some not so subtle. It's from things that are out there, whether they're, it could be in social media too. It's all different places. You get these messages that there's something out there that is really good, and I'm not. Like, in the ab department, I am a failure. Right? So the idea that that's important, that's going to be a problem for me. Of course, women are always seeing these images on magazine covers and everywhere else, about how they're supposed to look, etc. So we walk away with the message that there's real value out there, but not here. Celebrities telling us everything they do, every detail, focused out there. We end up judging, minimizing, and dismissing ourselves. Mindfulness helps us discover a tremendous resource that has been hiding in plain sight. And as we are becoming familiar with what's actually here, we find that we're searching out there less for the next morsel of entertainment to consume. Less desperate for that. The advertisers will not be happy. So we're becoming less oriented to externals. And what we're discovering is kindness, wisdom, compassion, appreciation is all here. You don't need to go looking for them. You don't need to rent them. They're here. Mysteriously here. Now, if we're looking for a push-button version of mindfulness, something that will give us a shortcut so we don't have to actually practice, put the effort in, it's not going to work. Let's say you take a walk outside and you look over and you see there's this area of moss that is really luxurious and rich. So, moss there. You keep walking, and next you notice a well-worn footpath, and then beyond that there's gravel. And on the gravel there's some chip bags and Coke cans. And so now your walk is over. You have a pretty good sense of what's there. Meanwhile, someone in their car, they just drove past this area. The only thing they might see are the chip bags. Basically, they're not going to know what was there. So for us in mindfulness practice, the moss and the gravel, these things are important. This is what the path, this is what we have to work with. So bypassing them is not going to yield any kind of result. It's about manual labor and ongoing regular practice. That way, we're relating to whatever comes up in our state of mind. We're going to get to know our state of mind, different states of mind. We're going to become familiar with all this apparatus. And we're going to be, I hate to say a lot further ahead, but goal-oriented, but compared to glossing over that stuff, there's no comparison. Our self-judgment begins to relax. As we are accepting ourselves more, warts and all, my non-abs, and accept them. Aggression becomes less relevant because we're not involved in a pitched battle with different elements of our life in order to survive, or we're not competing or trying to make someone look bad so we can look good. There's all these games, but they're not relevant. And what I'm saying is this is all, it all is a gradual process over time. It could be years, it could be many years, what we're talking about here. Nothing happens like that. So in this process, we're discovering that there's something whole, discovering wholeness within us. It's not only within us, but it's here. And also worthwhileness, worthiness. Just like the sun generates heat and radiates it out, what we're talking about, which is intrinsic, it's in us already. As we get in touch with it, it starts to radiate out towards others. So this isn't just a path of me improving myself. This is, we start with ourselves and then it can go much further. The body is hardwired to protect itself, and it does a great job at that. It's got all of the mechanisms it needs to do that. If we perceive a threat or danger, there's an alarm, very uncomfortable alarm feeling, like a zing, that just happens immediately. And we usually run away from things that feel bad. So our tendency is to run away from that. But mindfulness practice, we start to see that it's okay to be uncomfortable for a while. Not that we're intentionally making ourselves uncomfortable, but if it's here, if it visits us, we can relate to that instead of turning away. And we might notice that what we thought was a threat, which triggered this stress response, turns out that there is no actual threat. We made it up. Okay, now obviously some things are real threats and some things are not. So there's a role there for discriminating awareness. But that instant discomfort that comes when this is triggered, the stress response, you could call it anxiety, you could call it stress, you could call it panic. There's, I'm sure, different things. But it gets us to pay attention. Like it interrupts whatever we're doing, and so we can start paying attention, which is really valuable. Now, the fact that we can have this stress response going full steam ahead, even when there's no threat or danger, that's pretty interesting. And it affects us in our lives. Our imagination has commandeered our body's stress response. So if we're developing an ability to notice our thought process and bring our attention back to present moment, which is something entirely different, developing that over and over again, there's a chance that there will be awareness coming into our experience when we're making things up. And that's that could be very helpful. Thich Nhat Hanh, the great mindfulness and meditation master, said, "Anxiety, the illness of our time, comes primarily from our inability to dwell in the present moment. Anxiety, the illness of our time, comes primarily from our inability to dwell in the present moment. So when we can recognize our worrying, our disaster scenarios as thoughts, and when we know that thoughts are insubstantial and impermanent, and we can come back to nowness, problematic anxiety falls apart. There's nothing supporting it at that point. We've blown the whistle on the fake news of our own creation. When I say that, I'm not suggesting that our thoughts are fake. I'm talking about how we believe in our thoughts and how we believe in fake news. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to mention the book I wrote last year. It's published last year, Anxiety, Stress, and Mindfulness, a do-it-yourself guide to wellness. And this book has several mindfulness practices that are explained in some detail, and mindfulness awareness meditation practices, the key practice that I've been trained in. And of course, there's a lot of context about anxiety and stress and how all of these work together. The book is available through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, in Canada, many chapter stores. And there are reviews, excerpts, articles, and videos about the book on the website, which it's safermindfulness.com. safermindfulness.com. And on that page, there's a tab at the top. So we have actually a little bit of time, but within our half hour for questions. But I'm delighted to stay longer if there are questions. So let me see here. So far, I'm not seeing questions on my screen. It doesn't say if I can ask you questions. So we are at 30 minutes. Thank you very much for coming, for joining us tonight. And I look forward to seeing you again. Bye.